This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members only pay a $25 copay or less. No insurance, no problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.
Welcome to Education in Focus. I'm your host, Eliana Kernodle. Chicago Public Schools asked an HIV drug manufacturer to sponsor a district-wide event for LGBTQ plus students as young as 10 years old earlier this year in exchange for sponsorship benefits like logo placement and a shout-out during the opening session. Joining me to dig into this is Chalkboard News editor Brendan Clary. Brendan, we reported on this event before and noted that Viv Healthcare was a sponsor of this event. Can you remind us of the context here?
Yeah, Eliana. So the Galaxy Summit is, I've heard it described as like a gay-straight alliance sort of function. Basically, let's get the LGBTQ plus students from around Chicago Public Schools district to come together for one day and talk about some of these like issues around sexuality and sort of like your rights in the Chicago public school system and those kinds of topics. And I like have like sort of a bonding time to like network with their peers. I think that was part of it. And also to have some of these like informational workshops and also just like some crafts and stuff like origami workshops, I think. So that's sort of the context. This is not the first time that the Chicago Public Schools has done this. This is the second year, I believe, that they've had what they call the Galaxy Summit. And it's sort of they describe it as like a celebration of the different sort of galaxies of like love and sexuality. So I think it is, the district's way of saying like, this is how we're kind of going to do a big like event for the LGBTQ plus students. And they send home a parental consent form so parents know that this is roughly what they're going to be talking about. And that's from grades 5 through 12. So I think what you mentioned earlier is like that's like roughly ages 10 through 18.
Well, you've dug into this a little bit further and found that the district actually solicited the sponsorship of this drug company?
Yes. So I reached out originally and was just curious about the funding of the event. I had, I think, seen some things that just made me wonder, like, what is going on here? And eventually got a breakdown of here's the different kinds of federal sponsorships from the CDC, and that there was a lunch for $9,000, a catered lunch for 500 plus students and staff. I think it's not unreasonable to have a $9,000 lunch, but it said it was from Viv Healthcare, HIV drug company. They manufacture HIV drugs. And so I was kind of curious about like, what is the partnership there, and started looking into how much money the agreement between Chicago Public Schools and Viv Healthcare. And I found that there was an agreement where Viv said, we're going to give you $10,000. And then part of that, I asked for like what led to that, like what kind of communications were between the school and the drug company. And so some of the documents I'm still waiting on, and we'll kind of see like what kinds of communications do we have, like how long does it go back, and like what other emails are there. But in the meantime, we know that from a public records request that I filed, that in January, the executive director of the Chicago Public Schools, like Office of Health and Wellness, reached out to Viv Healthcare and said, do you want to sponsor this event? So that was January 30th, a couple of months before the event on March 2nd. And basically just said, hey, do you want to sponsor this? And here are the benefits for sponsorship, and kind of walk through, okay, if you're a bronze level sponsor, I mean, I think we've seen that. We're pretty aware of like, there are these different events out there. You have like a concert, right, where there's a music group, and there's different levels, different tiers of like sponsorship. And same kind of thing here with the bronze sponsor. you get to have like your name and something. But there's also all the way up to the platinum sponsor, and then you get a number of different benefits from that. So that's like you get to have a shout out at the opening session, you get your name and logo on the event website, you get your name and logo on the event flyer, and you have the opportunity to table and share organization resources at the event. So that's everything you get if you're a platinum sponsor, which you have to donate at least $10,000 to get. So the bronze is $500 to $1,999. $1,999. And then I believe you get to have like a table if you're a bronze sponsor. So it's an interesting look into some of the mechanisms behind like this event and like what it takes to do that. But I reached out to Chicago Public Schools the first time and I said, look, why partner with an HIV manufacturer for an LGBTQ plus event for students? And they didn't answer the question at all. They didn't get back to me at all about their partnership with Viv Healthcare. And then again, with writing this story, I reached out and just said, why do you want to partner with an HIV drug manufacturer? And they said, like, look, our previous statement, didn't want to go on the record. So I think that it's something that I'm going to keep looking into, but it's very interesting to see that, they're going out there and asking for these kinds of donations. And I haven't really heard a lot about other places doing that. And again, I haven't really heard a lot of there's not a lot of school districts out there, I don't think, who are having sort of these like whole day events where there's with like a Galaxy Summit sort of thing.
And you mentioned you're still kind of looking into this, still waiting on documents. Is there any information that you've gotten or that you're waiting for about who all they reached out to? Did they just reach out to this, or do you know if they reached out to other companies as well and this is just the one that agreed to it?
Yeah, that's a great question. Basically, what I'm going off of is a breakdown of the budget that I got from a request about like, how is this funded? And a lot of the money, it seems like, came from CDC grants. So the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has a program where they give money to schools that have gay-straight alliances to try to, I think, help improve outcomes for LGBTQ plus youth. And so that is the source of a funding. According to the document that I got from the school, the majority of it, we're talking thousands of, I think it was $40,000 was from the CDC grant. And so that was the source of the funding that I could tell, along with some board funds. So there was the CDC grant, some board funds, and then this Viv sponsorship. And that was the only, like in that itemized budget I got from the school, those were the funding sources. So there were only three. There was a CDC grant, some board funds, which I think would come from, like maybe discretionary budget, and almost $6,000 for breakfast. That's not, a lot in terms of, all of the Chicago Public Schools budget, right? In terms of their discretionary spending. But then it was that Viv healthcare sponsorship. And so that's kind of what got me looking into this agreement there and all this. So I'm not sure how many other people they reached out to, but according to the funding, like after the fact, the itemized budget, there was one of the only sponsors that's listed in that like internal budget document that I received that breaks down, here's what they got.
Well, Brendan, thank you for your insights on this story. Listeners can keep up with this story and more at chalkboardnews.com.